For over 60 years, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy has been one of those mysteries that just refuses to go away. Despite the official story, a huge number of Americans just don't buy it. But now, with a whole new batch of documents being declassified, we get another chance to follow that paper trail and see for ourselves what's been kept under lock and key all this time.
Okay, so let's just jump right in. The government has just dropped a mountain of files on us. We're talking about 60,000 pages of long secret documents all about the JFK assassination. It's a huge deal. But, this isn't the first time they've released files, and it probably won't be the last.
So that really brings up the big question, right? After all these decades and all the previous document dumps, what are people actually hoping to find in this new mountain of paper? What are those key missing pieces of the puzzle that could finally change the entire story?
Well, you really have to start with the main character in the official story, Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, the Warren Commission, they painted this picture of him as a lone, angry Marxist. But the thing is, there are all these key documents, many still blacked out or hidden away, that suggest that story, it might not be the whole story at all.
So let's rewind to the summer of '63, just a few months before everything went down. Oswald is in New Orleans, and he's doing some really strange stuff. He's out on the street, making a scene, handing out pro-Castro flyers, and he even gets into these very public fights with anti-Castro groups. It's all very loud and very weird.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Meet George Joannides. He was a CIA agent and, get this, his job was to run the exact same anti-Castro group that Oswald was so publicly fighting with. I mean, think about that. The CIA officer in charge of the group Oswald was picking fights with is a huge piece of this. And guess what? His full operational file is still classified.
See, that Joannides file could answer the most basic question about Oswald. Who was this guy, really? Was he a genuine communist sympathizer? Or was this whole pro-Castro act just a cover story, a part he was playing for some intelligence operation? Figuring that out would completely change how we see his motives.
Okay, so then just 6 weeks before Dallas, Oswald takes this really mysterious trip down to Mexico City, which at the time was a total hotbed for spies. He goes to the Cuban and Soviet embassies, supposedly trying to get a visa, and we know for a fact the CIA was watching those places like a hawk.
And here is where the story takes a hard left turn. The CIA and the FBI have 77 pages of files on this trip, and they are heavily blacked out. But buried in there is a bombshell, an FBI report that says the guy who showed up at the Soviet embassy claiming to be Oswald might have been an imposter. I mean, who was this guy, and why would he be pretending to be Oswald just weeks before the assassination? We still have no idea. So, all of Oswald's bizarre behavior and the fact that the CIA was watching him so closely, it all leads us right to our next section, the agency's own complicated and very troubled relationship with President Kennedy. It was no secret that after the disastrous Bay of Pigs invasion, Kennedy had zero trust in the CIA. He fired its top guys and, as this famous quote suggests, he basically wanted to tear the agency down and rebuild it. In fact, a memo his own advisor wrote about how to do just that, it's still heavily censored today.
And that brings us to this guy, James Jesus Angleton. He was one of the most powerful, most paranoid figures in the CIA, the chief of counterintelligence. And documents show that his office had a file open on Lee Harvey Oswald and was monitoring him for 4 full years before anyone knew his name. Why was the CIA's top spy hunter so interested in this nobody ex-Marine?
And this right here, this page says it all. It's from Angleton's 113-page testimony to investigators. Those white boxes? All redactions. Decades later, the government is still hiding what its top counterintelligence chief knew about the president's alleged killer. The whole testimony pretty much looks like a page of Swiss cheese.
And the cover-up didn't stop there. When Congress investigated all this in the 1970s, the CIA actively hid information. We know this because a secret 400-page internal report later confirmed it. They lied, they hid the roles of agents like George Joannides. And that report, the one detailing the cover-up, yeah, that's still classified too.
But the trail of secrets doesn't just stop with the CIA. The paper trail also leads straight to organized crime. And just as important, it leads to crucial pieces of physical evidence that have either totally vanished or been locked away forever.
So, here's the setup. The president's own brother, Robert Kennedy, was the attorney general, and he declared an all-out war on the mafia. And one of his main targets was Carlos Marcello, the powerful mafia boss of New Orleans.
the very same city where Oswald was hanging out. Let's just say Marcello had a very, very strong motive for revenge against the Kennedys. Now get this. The FBI, as part of a different case, secretly recorded conversations with Carlos Marcello. And according to informants, on those tapes, Marcello and his crew allegedly talk about their role in the assassination. These tapes could be explosive, right? Well, they've never, ever been released to the public.
It's not just tapes either. We've all seen the famous Zapruder film of the assassination. But there was another home movie, shot by a man named Orville Nix, that captured the whole thing from the opposite angle, looking directly at the grassy knoll, where many people think a second shooter was hiding. The FBI took that original film from Mr. Nix, and it has never been seen since.
So you have to ask, why does any of this still matter after all these years? Why keep digging for these files? Because some of the most personal and potentially the most revealing records of all are still completely hidden from us.
The people closest to JFK, both his wife, Jackie, and his brother, Robert, privately told people they did not believe the lone gunman story. Their real thoughts could be the most important testimony of all. And yet 5 personal letters Jackie wrote to President Johnson right after it happened, plus hours of interviews with both her and Robert a year later, they all remain sealed.
So when you step back and look at this whole landscape of missing files, you start to see a really clear pattern. Whether it's the CIA hiding its files on Oswald, the FBI holding back mafia tapes, or even the family's own records being locked away, it all points to this massive, decades-long effort to keep the full story from ever coming out.
And that kind of leaves us with one final big thought. People are going to keep digging through these 60,000 new pages, hoping to find that one smoking gun. But after 60 years of blacked-out pages, missing evidence, and official lies, you have to wonder, maybe the biggest conspiracy isn't what happened in Dallas. Maybe it's the 60-year campaign of secrecy itself, designed to make sure we never find out the truth.